And you,
Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, and the books are on audio as well. And if you would like to be on Slam the Gavel, please notify me at dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. I'm happy to have a return guest on. I have Dave Weigel. He is a top money manager in New York who comes to us via his advocacy work, a pretty far off way from Wall Street. He's perhaps more well known to some as the family court fraud warrior on social media and in the press. His divorce in New York City is now into its 14th year. After suffering 12 years of legal narcissistic abuse in the family courts, he decided to take his analysis of what he calls the most blatant government sponsored racketeering system of the court of public opinion. For the last 2 years, he has been highlighting to an ever growing audience the play by play of what he calls this business model of financial fraud. With a slew of other victims found from around the country, his newest initiative is to unite all victims nationwide into a single voice demanding change by calculating the industry data. Now, this data is collected directly from the victims themselves over this blockchain type public ledger on Facebook in what he calls this method of intelligent transparency, which is so much needed. He hopes his Wall Street experience in data mining and financial analysis can finally bring the needed transparency of this system to effect change. He's welcoming all victims who hear his voice to register at Family Court Fraud Warrior Project on Facebook, a group committed to revealing the worst of the worst culprits in this system, while at the same time holding up the heroes out there speaking truth to power. And I totally welcome you, Dave Weigel. The last time you were on season 5, episode 230, that was February 7th, 2025, where we talked about how family court is fully functioning and isn't it? And and where are you at now with Family Court Fraud Warrior?
oh my goodness. It's funny. We just had this conversation last night with the middle management team, how we said in December, like, yeah, it's probably going to be about a 3 month project. So, yeah, 7 months later, and now
Mm-hmm.
seeing about another 2 years ahead. It's it's been great. It is this organic thing. I never expected to be in the shoes that I'm in here right now. Anyone who's been through this process knows, like, you're basically just trying to survive the next week, right? You know, survive the next dagger, the next bomb thrown on your doorstep. And all I've tried to do throughout this whole thing is just think about the next right step,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the next right step. And thankfully, things are really, really exploding. We got over 3,000 members that just kind of popped up out of nowhere. I mean, just 3 months ago, we were at like four or 500. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was an idea 4 or 5 months before that. This whole 3 to 5 minute video mission was just something I thought of on the fly with one of my videos. And it was percolating in my head, and when I just knew that, like you come in and you say, "Oh my God, this is a model."
Mm-hmm.
This is not the first time. They're not doing this just to me. And there's got to be victims piled high to the sky everywhere. And boy, did we find that out. Okay. And we've really barely scratched the surface. I mean, we're not on TikTok, we're not on YouTube, we're not on Instagram, we're on the oldest and most defunct thing, Facebook, which
Mm-hmm.
barely works. Okay. But has worked for our needs thus far. Okay. We now have recently brought in a real tech guru, okay, Doug Sheridan, who wanted to be on this call with us, but he's got a court date today, a
Mm-hmm.
very important one. He's a real interesting guy because he's the husband of a victim, and he's suffered this abuse by proxy.
Mm-hmm.
And the phase that we're at in the project now is we are at phase 2. We are at the data gathering phase. It took us about 6 months to accumulate over 100 videos from around the country. It did present more stumbling blocks than we thought, but not really. A lot of people out there are just not tech savvy. And even this, and they're busy and nobody goes to Facebook to learn anything. It's
Mhm.
just what's right in front of your face. So we're working out kinks on a daily basis, but now we have enough of a critical mass to prove the point. In fact, when we just reran all, 100 videos in a row, that was another kind of viral moment, which brought in like 500 people like in the next week. Okay,
Mhm.
it really got out there. And then basically what we're doing here now is, as we're learning and speaking to all these different people, I mean, every day I'm walking down the street and I think of another question related to the industry as a whole. Not anything that comes up in any one-on-one case assessment,
Mhm.
but looking at the case as a whole. So I've separated the number of questions. Originally, I've been saying 30 to 40 questions. It's really more going to be like a total of 100, 110. But we are putting it out in sections, right?
Mhm.
That I've got to do a better job of communicating. I said this whole section is going to be about the family broken bonds. The
Mhm.
previous one I submitted was all about the financial fraud, but again, we need to do this on Facebook, doing this publicly in their face, okay? Letting them
Mhm.
see what's happening on the blockchain. This is the difference between a petition, okay? And I just got that question yesterday, somebody coming in saying, please sign my petition. And I don't want to poo-poo anyone's mission because I do understand, anyone who's been traumatized through this system, their case and their mission, if they're no longer hiding, in a depression in their basement for 3 years and they've now taken a stand to come out, this has become kind of like their identity, not everyone's had 14 years to learn this system, okay,
Right.
at the level that me and you have, you know what I
Right.
mean? So, you know, there was a time period we thought that, but we just had to, say that again, that the petition, okay,
Yeah.
it's a bunch of signatures, right, that you have to hand to the politician, and they say thank you, and they put it in the drawer, right?
Yeah.
So it's this alternative thinking that we've been preaching for over 2 years now that is still something that needs to be preached on a daily basis because I'm a big proponent. My hedge funds on Wall Street are all behavioral science based and all about evolutionary science and whatnot. And, humans underestimate, especially if you've had no reason to really study this, just how much we're controlled by conditioning. And,
Mhm.
I don't say this half jokingly, but the most visible conditioning that we have is the television. And what's been the most popular thing we've seen on television is this Law and Orders, the CSIs, the 30,000 episodes of, law and cops and law and order and all this stuff. And every single one of them build into your subconscious that there is this thing called the rule of law. All right. Courts are really courts. Okay. And the last group of questions, really already, Marianne, with only about 60 or 70 people answering it, there's a few questions there that 100% of the people have answered either yes or no and really just jumps off the page everything that we're trying to prove here.
Mhm.
That makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, this last group of 34 questions has to speak about the tangential destruction that happens to victims that really makes no sense. Wait a
Mhm.
second, okay? Someone had their children hijacked by the most corrupt system in the world, the worst thing that could possibly happen to a human being besides physical rape or something like that.
Mhm.
Okay. And 100% of the people have had their family and
Mhm.
friend group either exile them or either step in the way to take away their decision making about their children. I mean, who doesn't know you don't step between a mother and her children? Who doesn't? How is that not the 101 common sense? You don't ever, but the shocking thing is I asked the question in a way where I said, but seemingly while they were doing it, did they seemingly, almost seem at the subconscious level like they didn't even get how severe of an action this was.
Hmm.
So not only, okay, are you sitting there saying, oh my God, you're going through this kind of torture and torment, and the people that are closest to you, when you need them to have your back the most, number one, universally they're not there because everyone thinks it's, you poll any one of the victims' family, they'll tell you, oh no, 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 it's Susie's fault, it's David's fault, it's me, you know what I mean? And you ask the victim, all right, and they'll tell you, okay, oh no, 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 it's my mother, it's my aunt, it's my this, it's my that. But the reality is, what do the numbers say? The numbers say, no, 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 no. It's the system's issue. You cannot now look at this data and say, what's the source of the problem? Oh, the source is Maryann. The source is there. No, you can't see 100% of the people have had this happen to them and assign the cause to the individual. Clearly, it can't be the individual. Maryann can't be the reason for 70 other people's families and friend group to turn their back, right?
Hmm.
It has to be something else. And it really speaks to just how disastrous this system is, just how much how diabolical, and I hate to say it, but it is
It,
brilliantly executed system to mentally torment people in a way and be able to make the lies that they need in court stick, right? And become pseudo reality, that people are. So right now, we're just scratching the surface. Already we've got 4 or 5 questions where the answers that we've gotten thus far
mhm,
do exactly what I knew it would. What I knew it would absolutely make certain. Okay, so long as I can now, and that's the whole purpose of the multi-step plan, is and getting back to the signature is with the petition, right? Not only can someone grab this petition and just throw it into a drawer and never look at it, they can also sit there and say, well, who's to say that these signatures are from victims? These could be from liars. These can be from kooks. These can be from, the guilty parties that are pretending to be victims, right?
mhm.
So our methodology, which is a difficult thing, but is a necessary thing, where we have to take steps to verify that, that this data is data. Data is only data if it's true. All right. If we're
Right.
calling these people victims of the family court, they can't be guilty parties. They can't be, these other groups, okay, that are kind of out there. And it's difficult because, in such a public thing, all right, you're not you're not signing up to make a lot of friends if you're in a vetting process to sit
Mhm.
there and say, look, and I always say, everybody who's been through family court is a victim because no one got due process. No
Right.
one.
Correct.
No one got due process, right? Absolutely, absolutely. But our model is very, very different. Okay. It's not a legal process. We don't see it as a legal process. Okay. We're using the law for defense, but we're using the media for offense,
Mhm.
right? And if the media is for offense, that's a different animal. Okay.
Mhm.
The court, right? So, so we have to, and then nobody's got the opportunity and the resources to fully investigate 50,000 documents and analyze somebody's case. Okay, so we have to use these alternative methods of red flag indicators, green flag indicators, to sit there and say, okay, there's about an 80% certainty, okay, that these people are telling us the whole truth. Okay, because again, with some of these cases, if there's heavy drug use in there or whatever, right? There's a propensity to just not want to get all the information out there, right?
Right.
People are people, right? And it doesn't mean that they're not victims. No, does it mean that they're guilty of bad people? Absolutely not.
Or
But if
they're embarrassed.
right, they're embarrassed. Or if we go to the public and say, hey, these are, victims here, and I'm saying politely, a lot of America may not see it that way. They may say, no, no, I'm sorry, but kids and drugs don't belong. And we don't see the level of fraud in CPS removing children from that situation, right?
Mhm.
So the issue is, and what people have to understand here is that there's so much fraud in this system, and the cards are stacked so against us. it only makes sense to go after the lowest hanging fruit, right?
Mhm.
There's so much evidence of fraud. There's so many horrific things out there that, we don't need to make our job even harder. We're all volunteers. There's a reason why nothing has broken this system thus far. So again, we're not looking to make enemies, but like we have to find the weakest door to the castle and send our strongest warriors through that weakest door.
Mhm.
Right? We can't employ a strategy where we're so spread out. It's just not set up for success, kind of a thing. You know what I'm talking.
Like these petitions, because I had a petition going. A judge had retired, and I was like so thrilled that this happened. But when I looked at the newspaper article, she said, even though I'm retired, I'm not going away. And I thought, oh, you're not going away? That means they're going to pull you out of retirement so you can roll on the bench and destroy more people's lives here and there. So I started this petition to get her off the bench, and I got, I don't know, 500 to 600 signatures. And
Right,
then someone wrote to me saying it's not really going to do anything or it's not going to help.
right.
And I I really do believe it's not going to help.
Yeah.
Uh,
But we gotta, we have to live and learn. Like I went through
mm,
7 attorneys. How many people have come to me? No, 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 no. Your problem is because you get it from all your friends. Again, and this is what we highlight in the whole questions about the family broken bonds, because the reality is there's such a disconnect between who people believe are at fault, who's really at fault. Okay. And that is the family is wrong that it was the victim's fault because we've just proven that the victim was not lying the whole time. Okay. But
mhm.
then equally, can you really fault the family and friends for not understanding that the nationwide racketeering system's going on, not believing that somebody can get arrested 6 times and have no guilt whatsoever,
Right?
right? In this, I mean, that's we're not conditioned to believe that. We're not conditioned to believe that. So, you know, um, like unfortunately, you do have to live and learn, okay, with this stuff, and that was the whole basis of starting the movement. It was the idea of, oh my God, what if we knew in year one what we know now?
Hmm.
Okay. And one of the hardest things to do with people that are coming in, because again, if it's become their identity, they get locked on to, no, 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 I've got my RICO case, or I've got the greatest evidence. You don't understand what kind of evidence. And what we're trying to breed people to understand is say, embedded in your statement and your belief system is you believing the court is going to act like a court at some point, right? And you've got to open your mind and your ears to look at the data. And this is what I'm trying to impress people is that the data doesn't lie, right? It doesn't lie. Listen to what it's saying. And you're not dealing with a system. You're dealing with organized crime,
Hmm.
okay? And the question then becomes, okay, what can you possibly do about it when that organized crime is the legal system that you need to rely on, the criminal justice system to rely on? What possibly could you do? You could either roll over and die, or we
Hmm.
can band together into one voice and have a coherent, and that's why I don't mean to be pompous, intelligent transparency. What I
Hmm.
try to mean about the intelligent transparency is, for example, how many people, Maryann, have reached out to you with the 18-page email and the 37 PDFs attached and 55,000 documents, right? And I'm not making fun of these people because I was one of them, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like, but really check yourself. Like, someone's going to sit there and dedicate 20 hours and read all this stuff? No.
A,
Okay.
a
That's not
40-page brief.
that's not transparency. I'm trying to tell people, if you really want to help yourself, no one knows your case like you. Okay. Get your evidence and your story together into a 3-page bullet points chronology. Okay. That is digestible. That is something that has a chance of getting absorbed, right?
Mhm.
And this also speaks to the 3 to 5 minute video mission, right? Because if I didn't limit it to 3 to 5 minutes, these would be a half an hour long,
Mm-hmm.
because we just, again, it's trauma based, right? Like these things have happened to us, right? So we have to get it out. And like,
Right.
oh, oh, I didn't tell you about this. Oh, but I didn't even tell you about this happen. And guess what? This. But again, I try to get people to understand embedded in that is number one, that this is a rare event, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I even said this to, I was speaking to Richard Luthman when I first met him. And one of the questions I said, Rich, I said, I don't get it. Like, I'm telling you things that are so absurdly outrageous and
Mm-hmm.
shocking, and you're having no response to it at all. Like your jaw should be dropping. He
Right.
goes, Dave, he goes, because you don't understand. This is not news. I hear this 10 times a day. And I had to really sit back. And that's one of the peels of the onion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this is our difficulty at the moment, is dealing with so many things. And now with a big group of 3,000 people and more coming in, everyone's at a different stage of peeling that onion back, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and um and it's wonderful. It's a challenge, to see people grow. We've had our 12th, I call this our 12th success of the mission, where we had a young lady come into one of our open Google Meets, and and you can kind of tell she was another person that was kind of hell bent on her mission. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
she was coming in to get information, and she had asked something. I confused and thought that she was somebody coming from someplace else that wasn't looking to be productive here, and so I was a little bit more direct than I'd normally be. But she just kind of came in, kind of like raring to go, and I was just like, no, no, this is what we believe. You need to close your mouth and open your ears, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And she did. And when she did, it completely shocked her into a different perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you could tell before she was on this mission saying, no, 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 I'm going to go to court, and the court's going to hurt my ex, and it's going to work for me, and I'm going to get
Oh.
full custody of the kids,
Mm.
right? And 3 weeks later, she's had this epiphany where she said, no, 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 no. She was able to go back to her ex and say, look, I'm going to get destroyed. You're going to get destroyed. The kids are going to get destroyed. Let's stop this. All right. Let's just work this out. And she did.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? 4 kids now have both mom and dad in their life, and they have avoided. When I sit there and think about what they avoided with that decision.
Oh,
Now, without us involved, or without this message getting there, is there people in her life that was saying, "Oh, no, 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 no. Okay, you should really make
mhm.
him pay, right? Oh, no, no,
Right.
you
It's
should
all
get
the
a hundred
chirping.
percent." The
Yep.
chirping, right? You should get 100. You should have the kids 100% of the time, right? You should really make them pay. You should, you know what I mean? And then you couple that with the lies coming from the lawyers, right?
The liars.
Right. And I said, oh my God, had she not gotten this information at the time that she did, how easy would it have been to them to just go too far into the system where it's
Oh,
a point of no control, no return, right? Now the lawyers have sowed too much seeds in there, the hooks are in, and the ability to back out of this, okay, and have this conversation is now highly, highly, highly unlikely. So yeah, I was smiling from ear to ear, because just thinking about that, this is the behavior change we are after. This is what
right.
our whole approach is about, is coming at this a different way to change behaviors in the courts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've modified our plan. In the beginning, when I set it up, phase one was about submitting the 3 to 5 minute video, okay, to initially vet people based on the concept that the narcissist and guilty people would not do a 3 to 5 minute video saying this judge is at fault. One, they know they're lying, right? It's a public ledger. Someone out there knows you're lying. They're just not going to do it, right? But that's not 100%. The next step was answering a lot of these questions that would reveal more. And then the third part of the phase three was initially about going to the media. I thought at this point I'd have relationships with 100 Maryann Petris around the country or the world, and it would be so easy to unite all these groups together. I heard there's 390, okay, Facebook groups alone on family
Hmm.
court, but I underestimated and didn't understand the dynamics of the level of crisis of self out there. Okay, one of the things that we're doing is with our education and our healing series is
Hmm.
really helping people understand what complex PTSD is,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And that's, you talk about run rampant. I mean, I don't
Uh-huh.
know how you go through this system and possibly avoid it. I'm sure there's a handful of people, maybe, okay,
Hmm.
but I mean, I can't see it being any less than 99% of people that have complex. And what are the quintessential things of PTSD that separates it from CPTSD from PTSD? It is problem with relationships.
Hmm.
You're constantly fighting, okay, with everybody around you. Inability to control your emotions, emotion deregulation,
Hmm.
okay? And then also a crisis of self, right? When you've been, for a series, been so abused, and especially this way, it's impossible not to feel horrible about yourself,
Hmm.
right? You have your children taken. I mean, what's more dignity robbing than that, right?
Hmm.
So now what's the output of that? What's the yin to that yang? And that is, oh, no, 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 no. Okay, I'm an important person. You need to listen to me. Okay, hear me roar, hear me roar. Like, so it breeds a difficult environment for people to come together and say, no, 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 I'm going to follow. Everyone's trying to lead at the same time
Hmm.
rather than sit there and say, I'm really good at this. I'm going to just do this piece, but I'm going to bolt on. Maryann is, I'm not going to start my own podcast. I'm never going to get as good as Maryann. I'm just going to let Maryann do that. Okay. I'm not going to kid around with dissecting financial fraud. Dave's got the credentials and doing this 30 years as a hedge fund based on it. Well, I'm going to follow Dave on that side of it. You know what I mean? So I'm still hopeful that, the right leaders can come together and put all this stuff together to be able to do that. But it really does seem that the underpinning there is the trauma.
Hmm.
It's the people that have had enough distance from the heart and soul of their trauma, right? If they're in the middle of it, very, very difficult. Very, very, very difficult to be able to congeal the way that, one would need. So the bottom line is
Hmm.
we thought phase three would be recreating the 5 o'clock news,
Hmm.
right? Because we said, hey, clearly YouTube and everything, new media is taken up for old, taken over for old media. It's fantastic. There's no filter. Okay, you could just get out there and be published. But because there's no filter, now millions of people can be all screaming at the same time. So
Hmm.
the one thing that old media did better was corral everybody around the 5 o'clock news to have what are the five biggest stories of the country that we all should be talking about, right? But then over this last 6 months, I was saying, okay, so we get this study back. And it definitively proves to people who understand scientific studies that this is a nationwide racketeering system. Let's say we had that proof in our hands right now, right? Does that mean that all of a sudden the New York Times is going to put it on the front page? Does that mean that that's going to send everybody to the streets with pitchforks and fire? Like we live in this world of chaos theory where
Hmm.
we turn on the news and it's well, like once in a thousand year news every day. So I thought about it again, and that's where this idea of this wall of shame and wall of fame came about. Because it said, even if we do everything right, we created a viral podcast, a viral articles. Okay, got on Channel 4 News. All of that stuff, even a documentary that winds up being a blockbuster. All of it has a shelf life, right?
Hmm.
It all has a shelf life. People talk about it a couple of weeks, couple of months, whatever. And what could the other side do? Wait us out. Wait us out.
Hmm.
Okay. Wait till the dust settles. I'm convinced that's what they're trying to do in my case. I've just been dealing, I'm now at 14 years, 4 months. And for the last year and a half, I've got nothing but kicked out non appearance control dates. Nobody knows what that is. What is a non-appearance control date? And it's just they just keep punting and punting. And
Hmm.
I'm convinced it's because their strategy is, oh, Weigel's too visible right now. He's got the press and he's all over the place, but that'll die down. He'll go back to running his hedge fund, okay, and he'll get sick of all this stuff and it'll die down. We'll hit him then, right?
Hmm.
But now we thought, okay, also our victims are not going to be able to do identically what I did to get my kids back, right? Start 2 years of telling the story to their friends and family. A lot of people don't want to reveal this to their friends and family. A lot of people don't have the capability of being able to do that kind of work and get that kind of attention and it's difficult, right? Like, kind of a thing. But here, right, if we now have these 100 videos that we pull the data off and we run it through AI and it transcribes it, and we use that information to now see who the biggest culprits are. Okay. Oh, this judge over here has got 7 victims. This attorney firm in Chicago has got 10 victims, right? Now we have this permanent wall that never goes away. Every day it's got the ability to go around the world collecting another video. I mean, another victim, another victim, another victim,
Hmm.
right? So, and then another person, and this is the wonder of how big the world is, the wonder of social media. Okay. And I
Hmm.
always said if there was going to be something to break this system, it had to be innovation related, had to be something they didn't think of, they didn't see coming, right? Technology, most of the lawyers are older, they're not tech people. Okay. So, yeah, Facebook has been wonderful for uniting a bunch of victims that we would have never met 20 years ago, right? We would
Yes.
have been 1 or 2 people in our town. We would have killed our family and friends with their stories. We would have never met, okay, all these other victims. We would have never, right?
Hmm.
But now that we've got this, okay, to be able to now utilize this data and put it up on this wall of shame, and at the same time, the wall of fame, okay, holding people like you up, Maryann, okay.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. You've been in there since the beginning doing outrageous work. I know how you've suffered. Other people have known how you've suffered. You've suffered for other people. Okay. You're a hero. Okay. So holding up these culprits and these monsters at the same time, holding up the people who deserve to be to say, hey, you should know about this person. You should know about what they have done to raise awareness about this, to give mothers and fathers a voice. Okay. You've given a voice to how many podcasts have you done?
Over 750 interviews.
Right. That's 750 people that you gave a voice to and gave exposure to and to their case. And that's that's just phenomenal. Okay. And now what we're trying to do is take that one step further. Now that we've raised the awareness amongst this group, right?
Hmm.
What's the next step? Right? What's the next step? And yeah, what we're trying to do here now is to really have this wall of shame, okay, be this permanent fixture out there that goes around the world every day and gives somebody the ability to say, hey, wait, your uncle, didn't your uncle that didn't have a disaster story? Don't you have a niece? Don't you have a nephew? Right? Did you see that wall thing? Oh, I'll send it over to you. And and that's something that doesn't have a shelf life, right? And
Hmm.
I'm convinced, Maryann, this is going to breed some behavioral change in the courts. Okay.
Hmm.
When these judges see, oh my God, I'm up to 20, they know how many people they hurt, right?
Oh,
20
yes.
victims, 25, 30. At some point, there's going to be a breaking point. They're going to do something stupid. They're going to retire. Something else is going to happen. But also, what else is going to happen? Other judges in that county are going to know about it. And now they have different math. Okay. Now, when they're sitting in court saying, oh, do I want to do the wrong thing and get paid? There's no pain, right?
Hmm.
If they do the wrong thing, it's pleasure and pain. Okay. I want the money. I'm going to seek for pleasure. But the pain system used to be, oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble. Okay. I'm going to lose
Hmm.
my job, all this other that's been removed. So now, if we're able to be successful with these walls, they could be sitting there saying, do I want my name on this wall? Do I want somebody counting how many victims I've accumulated? Do I want my children and family embarrassed by this being so public? Okay. Do I really care about this person? I'll just give her kids back. I'll give him his kids back.
Mhm.
Okay. Because and we've actually seen this, Maryann. We've actually seen this.
Well, I followed your lead on that when you said that. I think you said that several weeks ago on one of our meetings.
Okay.
And so I said I was interviewing a mom, and I said, okay, she wanted to do an update interview. And I said, okay, so we would like to hear something good that the judge did the right thing. I
Yeah.
want to hear it. I said, I really hope the judge did the right thing. And she came back to me a couple weeks later, and the judge still did not do the right thing.
Yeah.
But once you start name dropping these judges, and see, have you noticed whenever there is a child being unalived in the news media,
Mhm.
they are not naming the attorneys involved
No.
or the judge? Why? Why not? These are all participating actors.
Yeah, no, because the corporate-owned media are controlled by their attorneys. Okay.
Hmm.
They're not brave enough to make an enemy out of powerful judges and attorneys. And people think that we're crazy for being as brave as we are. Maybe we are a little bit, and maybe that's what is needed here. Okay. Because this is at crisis levels, right? Like just thinking about the next family that's just showing up for family court for their very first time, right? I said in my very beginning, I had to walk on my way to work next to some parks, and I would look and see kids playing at 3 and 4 and 5 years old with their
Hmm.
big smiles, and daddy shows up, mommy shows up, mommy run and jump in their arms and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then all of a sudden I get hit with a flood of emotion and seeing that smile turn to dread, you know,
Oh,
to
yes.
to what we know is the psychological torture that these kids go through and the bonds that they go through, yeah,
Hmm.
the broken bonds. And so yeah, unfortunately, I'm shocked to see, because you probably noticed that a year ago local news reports would not be reporting on this at all. We're starting to see it out of some local news channels, or starting to report CPS cases and things
Hmm.
about judges and stuff, where it was a pure waste of time. I mean, I must have spent 2 years calling every journalist and place. I have a cousin who was the cameraman in Connecticut for a local news station. I mean, worked there 30 years and had lunch with the investigative reporter in Connecticut for 30 years. This woman wouldn't even call me back. What does that mean? What does that tell you? Okay. The corporate owned media is still controlled by the legal mafia out there,
Hmm.
right? And yeah, so it's gonna take some brave souls like us, okay, that get a bigger and bigger following to kind of really break this story, and provide methodologies that actually do work, right? We've seen some horror stories with people that have just taken to Facebook and then said the wrong things, right? And then they went to jail for 180 days,
Hmm.
right? So that's the difference between kind of doing things not the right way versus the right way. Is trying to express to people that not everybody can do it, but like having your evidence, okay, memorialized by a card carrying journalist. Now it's under the freedom of the press, right? There's things that journalists can do, all right, with freedom of the press that go beyond the protections that we have. How many people in our world do you know have a gag order? What would you say, Maryann? 1,000? I mean, what?
Yeah. Probably around
70,
there.
70%, okay, 60%, okay.
Yeah.
It's the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law, okay.
Yeah.
So how do these absurdities go? Because there's no one telling them, no, you can't do this.
Hmm.
And here's going to be your punishment. So we have got to think of this punishment, right? Protests are starting to really, really work. We were just supported one out in Long Island, the Americans for Legal Reform. Had about 40 people there. Was actually big for protests in this world, because people are scared. All right. Certain locations have been known to retaliate against people that have shown up for, protests, or
Hmm.
harass in a certain way. You know what I mean? The smaller the town and the more close knit it is, the more the corruption can seep between all facets of the criminal justice system, down to the police and everything else. So yeah, they go very far out of their way to um to uh to try and keep this quiet, right? And I try to tell everybody, I was like, well, what is that telling you? If they're making so many efforts to isolate you, keep you quiet, threaten you with retaliation, okay, put a gag order on it. What is that telling you? That's telling you that getting the information out really hurts them, really hurts this thing. But, that's easier said than done because how many people are willing to potentially take whatever short-term pain might come from that, right?
Well, yeah, because I have, in my book here, I have Jim Schock in here. I don't know if you can see him really good,
Yeah,
but I've known him since, would you believe, 2018 or
okay.
2019. And he has been through what, over 5 states, probably 11 attorneys, and I've been with him through this whole thing, just wanting to see his son. And what the other party is doing is just moving around to the point where it's a distance thing. And
Okay.
he's been in the New York court system and he has gone to protests. I've had him on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be some justice. He has not committed any crimes whatsoever.
Right.
And yet they won't let him see or have his kid on a regular, a 50-50 basis at least. Uh, I don't know what to say. They've disturbed his 2A rights, the First Amendment rights.
Everything.
This guy has been through the ringer, and I know another mom. I mean, I support both moms and dads, and
Thank you. We do as well.
right, and I posted a video on Natalia Dalton because Judge Kemmler retired. I wonder how that
Mm,
happened. But
yeah.
there was a response under the one video said, "Well, welcome to our father's world." And I responded back, "Okay, this has happened to the dads for over 40 years.
Yeah.
Somehow there's been a shift. The pendulum has swung back.
Right.
Now they figured, hey, women are working, they've got an income, let's go
Right.
after them now." But
Right.
they're still going after everybody. And my response was that, and please unite. We need to help each other, not just still focus on, this past of them going after the dads. We've got to pull together as
Yeah.
parents. Am
It's
I?
not in the data. This is not a women's rights issue, a men's rights issue. They use that, they throw that as a ploy to send you down a rabbit hole, okay, to twist your head up and make you think it's about that. There's only one way you need to think about this. And I challenge anyone to go through your case and think about this. At every single juncture, you need to answer one question. What makes more money for the system? Okay. People, they come in there and they identify the roles. Who's going to be the bad parent? Who's going to be the one that's going to ring the register and come back to court 100 times over the next 10 years because you've just given them a drug? You've given them the ability to harm their ex at will. That's a
Mhm,
drug, okay? Who's going to be willing to alienate the kids to harm that other parent?
mhm.
And then you have the good parent that will do anything to stop this abuse of their children,
Right.
right? Right, which is the people that you speak to all the time here, and we have in ours, right? Where those people are just, they're banging their head against the wall, waiting for the court to do the right thing.
Mhm.
And what's a court do? They come back and start shaming. Oh, it's your fault. You're crazy. You're
Oh,
a
yeah.
criminal. You're crazy. You're a criminal. You're this and that.
Mhm,
Okay. And it's unfortunately genius because it lends itself towards isolation. People don't want to be public about that information. They think
mhm.
people are going to look down their nose. And that's why we started this 3 to 5 minute video because I started saying to people, look, you can now go to people and say, oh, wait a second, you were looking down your nose at me because I lost my children. I've been telling you since day one, this is a nationwide racketeering scheme. And oh, by the way, take a look at this site and the hundreds and thousands of people. So I guess you, not to spark an argument, but just to give people back that dignity that's been robbed from them. To say,
Mhm.
now you were the idiot because you were looking down your nose and shaming me. and you didn't even know this was going on. And I was telling you from the beginning this was going on here. So we're trying to help people build themselves back. Also understand that as righteous it is to be angry, we know that the rational response to this level of abuse is rage. But rage is giving it to them. It's allowing them
Mhm.
to say Maryann's crazy, David's a violent person, this and that and all this other stuff. So if you could go in there seeing the courts as this theater that it is, and it's
Mhm.
all just a scam based on making it look like the law. Okay. And you could actually just kind of laugh in their face and be like, oh, you're just a terrible actor. Okay. That's your shtick for today. And be
Mhm.
like, okay, and where you just let these insults fly over your head. They don't have a plan B. Okay. They only have a plan A, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna throw them for a loop. But the biggest thing is getting people to realize that save your energy. Okay, save
Mhm.
your money, you know what I mean? If you keep going back to this court waiting for the court to do the right thing, look at the numbers, listen to the people that have been there for 15, 20 years. It's not like 1% have succeeded. When it's zero, all right, when it's
Mhm.
20,000 legal process we've seen fail, right? What sense does it make talking about the 20,000 and first? Is that not the definition of insanity? I
Mhm.
think it is. But the
Mhm.
question is why? Why do we have this insanity? Because we're so traumatized by the removal of our kids, and we're
Mhm.
conditioned to believe we live in a world with the rule of law, right? But if you can get there, if you can get there, you can now sit there and say, oh my God, I don't have 80 hours worth of work on my head because I'm going to do this writ and this motion and I'm going to spam these 18,000 officials that are just going to delete my spam. I'm not going to waste all my time with that. Now I'm going to collect evidence. I'm going to collect evidence of their crimes and
Mhm.
I'm going to get bigger than myself. I want to protect myself. Okay? I keep telling people we're giving you something right here and now without even submitting a video or doing a single question. Come into our group and make it known that you are an active member of this group.
Mhm.
Now, your ex, the attorneys, the judge, they know this. Now they're doing different calculus. Uh-oh, do I want to be on this wall? I know what they're doing. I know their exposure. I know what they've been able to get, well, okay, in the press. Do I want to have a Google search of my name and see all this stuff come up? People don't understand the power of a Google search.
Oh, yes.
The Google search is going to be around forever, okay? And people need to protect Google search Maryann Petri, okay? If the whole first page is crimes, 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 victims, crimes, that's what moves the needle. Unfortunately, the law is not. The law is not. But we can't give it to them. Okay, we have to not step on those traps and those landmines. Okay, being angry kind of does that. So yeah, I mean, it's organic. It's ebbing and flowing and changing. But I'm really, really, really excited about this walls project because I'm more excited. I'm not, I've stepped up in this bigger bully fashion because I figured this is what was needed. This is
Mhm.
not naturally me. I'm a goofball, okay?
Mhm.
People who grew up with me are shocked to see me all so serious all the time here.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love the fact of being able to do side by side doing this wall of fame,
Mhm.
right? To sit there and be involved in getting the news out about people like yourself, okay? Telling that story. Has anyone ever done the Maryann Petri story?
I've done my own story. That's how bad it was. I mean, it's pretty bad if you have to write and publish your own story.
Well, that's
Uh,
what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what's new is that's something that's new that should be told, right?
right.
And that's going to also validate us more because we're not going to look like this angry group of and that's what I was saying with these protests that only get a few people out. It can kind of work against you because if there's only 4 or 5 people there, now you look like just some guilty people that want to blame. Like if you go to a prison and ask how many people, really did it, okay, or they were a victim of fraud, 90% of the hands go up. Nobody did it. Everybody, is a victim kind of a thing, right?
Hmm.
So, the idea is that, we do have to get bigger. And for the people that are, concerned about retaliation, right? I said on the call the other day, I was just like, I understand there's some risks here, but what is the alternative? Okay.
Right.
Living in the system that you're in now, right? Living how you are now. And that was the thing that really got the most visceral response from everyone because people immediately got that and just like, no, it's true. We can't live under this status quo. So as long as we
Hmm.
do it the smart way and we have the power of numbers, right? We
Right.
have we have the power of truth on our side and we have the power of numbers, right? So, this is what we got to impress upon people that they've got to utilize.
Hmm.
Get your story out, all right? Do your TikTok thing, all right? Do your podcast, do this, that, and the other thing, right? You have to go to court, you have to deal with that. All right, you do all that stuff, but also, we're just asking people, we're never going to ask you for money, okay? We just ask you to follow the steps. Just follow the steps, about an hour out of your life to do a 3 to 5 minute video and answer 100 questions.
Hmm.
That's it. That's it. What's the downside? Now, some people think the downside is if I do this video, okay, I'm going to lose. I have limited access to my child right now,
Hmm.
right? What if they take that away, right?
Hmm.
That's a very real concern. That's a very real concern. But again, knowing what you and I know,
Hmm.
right? Have you ever known anyone who just did what the court asked of them and they got what they wanted?
No, in fact, it's coming. When you said they're afraid of losing access to their child, well,
It's coming.
it's going to come. Yeah, just give it a couple months or a couple of weeks. In fact, I had a fellow call me saying, I want to come on the podcast and talk, but I don't know. I'm worried about my case. And I said, well, is your case in the SHITTER? And he said,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it is. I said, well, tell you what, you think about it for, a couple days, talk it over with your family, let me know, give it a couple weeks, think about
Right.
it. He came back in a couple weeks and we did a podcast
Yeah.
because it's just that bad.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But the thing is, they're so buried by their case, they don't have the time or the energy to be able to do this extra research, to
Mm.
go out and get these numbers and look, right? And how many of these people who are scared are hearing from their attorney? They haven't gotten to the point where I got. Thank God I started. The first thing I started researching was narcissist abuse, and I thought I knew what a narcissist was, and I was a pretty smart
Mm.
guy.
Mhm.
No, okay. If you don't really research what a true narcissist personality disorder is, not narcissist tendencies, which everybody has,
Uh-huh.
okay, to a certain degree,
Right.
full-blown narcissist personality disorder, which is really what we're up against, right? This brilliant woman that just knew her stuff, Jill Weiss, she's on the YouTube under the Enlightened Target, and she said to me, Dave, she goes, the only time I have ever seen anything good happen in any of the cases I've been privy to the last 20 years is after people have gone pro se, right?
Yeah.
And I said, whoa, okay, now that was up to my seventh attorney. So the point is, the attorneys do a very, very good job of saying, oh, don't you go public. Oh, if you go public, that's it. You're never going to see your kids again. You know what I mean? Why? Because that hurts them. They know that, right? So, so there's real reason to understand how people can have this, this worry, this fear, and this trepidation to actually taking this step. But I think the real key is, like you said, is getting that message across. Like, yeah, I tell people, I was like, you have to think about it this way also. Why do you think they don't let anybody out the side door for good behavior? Because
Mm.
now they've just let somebody with the energy and resources to come back and fight them later, right? That's
Hmm.
why they destroy everybody. All right. They destroy everybody to make sure they know what they're doing is illegal. Okay. They do that to insulate themselves from future attacks. They're not going to
Hmm.
let somebody out the side door that hasn't been fully destroyed, still has a job, still has resources, okay, still has the ability to circle the wagons with other people, okay.
Hmm.
If you think about it as a business model, as a mob business model,
Hmm.
will allow you to be able to see this for what it is and be able to make the right decisions. If you're still caught up thinking you need a good attorney and no, 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 I just need to get to federal court. Oh, no, no, I need to
Mm-mm.
submit the 667 form. Really? Do you think in 20 years with the hundreds of thousands of people that went through, you think there's a form that hasn't been submitted? That's the answer. Okay. Everybody missed a form, right? Like, but again, these are not stupid people. It's that level of trauma, the
Hmm.
level of trauma put on us, you know? So anyway, we're excited. We're excited about where we're at.
Now, are you collecting data on pro ses that have been through federal court and have had their cases dismissed?
Yeah, to the extent of literally asking the question, okay, what legal processes have succeeded in an offensive manner?
Hmm.
To date, that answer is zero. Okay. There have been things people have been able to do in the courts defensively to
Hmm.
avoid jail, to avoid something, right? To
Hmm.
avoid the worst of worst, okay, attack against them, right? But when it comes to getting my child back, getting away from this person, stopping this series of arrests at will, stopping my ex from just up and moving to another state, okay, whenever they want, stopping, okay. And
Hmm.
that brings up another good point is that, we are definitely focusing on the system as a whole because it is, this thing that has turned a terrible situation and poured rocket fuel on it. Okay. But to a lot of victims in here, it's not even the courts or a judge or an attorney that is the real culprit. It
Hmm.
is this narcissist ex that is their abuser, that is keeping them in bondage.
Right.
And the same rules apply here. And this is what got my kids back is, and this is a little bit more delicate because this is the mother or the father of your own child. But like I've explained to my family when they were trying to highly dissuade me from going public, and I said, listen, this is not airing dirty family laundry.
Hmm.
These are felonies. This is child abuse going on, and
Right.
it's rampant. So this has to be done. Okay. This has to be done. And if you're in that situation, I checked myself by saying, am I telling the whole truth? And is this the right thing to do for my kids?
Hmm.
And as long as I satisfied those two things and I said, this is authentic. Okay. Um, I went with it. And thankfully I was rewarded because over time I was able to basically every narcissist has the face they put out to society, right? And then
Hmm.
and they care so much about how they look to society and then what they're doing secretly to you. So that once you actually get the proof and the evidence out there on permanent public record, you set the record straight. As soon as it gets around enough, now their entire house of cards folds. Okay. Everyone around them knows, oh, no, 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 no. This person has been putting on a face and
Oh,
pretending
yes,
this
they're
way,
good.
but it is not.
Hmm.
This person is a bad person. This person has not been doing what I got a funny story that happened is I was talking to an old friend's girlfriend and she goes, Dave, she goes, yeah, she goes, I haven't been your biggest fan forever, but like when I saw what your ex was doing to her kids, that's when I came on board, right?
Hmm.
And that's really what it is all about. Nobody's interested in your tiff with your ex. If it's about the kids and you are saying, look, this is what's happening to the kids. This is what they're suffering.
Hmm.
This is what they're facing. This is what they're going to have going forward here. And you're giving them the play by play. That's kind of a universal message where there's no controversy.
Right.
Everybody is on your side. Okay. No one is on the side of abusing kids. I
But
mean,
people don't understand the child psychological abuse. They're not considering that abuse. um, the APA in 2014 wrote an article saying that child psychological abuse is worse than physical and sexual
Right.
combined.
Right.
So, but even the police don't take that seriously. They haven't been trained on child psychological abuse. That's another podcast, I'm afraid.
That is a whole animal there. Yep.
Yes, yes. And
Yep.
people have to, the schools fall for it, like you were saying, how the narcissist puts on this beautiful act. And I think I told you that
Oh, yeah.
my ex
They
command,
work the schools, the
uh,
PTA. They are the king and queen of PTAs.
yes, my ex conducted, he had a meeting with nine teachers in the principal's office. Like, why would you take nine teachers out of out of their schoolroom when they should be teaching to have a performance? So he had a performance that I guess I was invited to, but I didn't know about. So as
Right.
I'm driving down the road, the principal calls me and said, how come you weren't at the meeting? I said, what meeting? And
Right.
he said, there was a meeting at 10 o'clock. Didn't your ex tell you? I said,
Yeah.
why would my ex tell me? I
Right.
said, when can I come in and talk with you? He said,
Right.
well, I'm free at 11:30. So he told me what happened and nine teachers were there and, dad got emotional.
Oh, really?
Yes,
He
dad
brought
got
out the tears? Oh,
yeah, all the time. This was
it's
a
an accident.
constant,
Yeah.
on the witless stand. And then I pulled out a document that was a doctor's letter about, his behaviors
Right.
in this meeting. I can't really go into that one because I need to protect that doctor. But
Right.
I said, this is what I'm dealing with. And he read it. Guess what the principal says? I don't want to get involved. And I said, guess what? You already are.
You signed up for it, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay. When you
Yeah.
decided to make a career out of overseeing children, right?
Right.
So, right, get off it. Yeah. The schools, unfortunately, are not a help at all. There is no training about it. A lot of times, therapists are
Oh,
harmful to the
yes.
situation. Okay,
Yes.
because they don't recognize they see the rightful anger of the abused spouse, and they think that's the way they parent, right? And they don't see the justification of it. And they see this lovely, other, spouse that is just feeding them all the sugar and spice under the sun, kind of a thing. And it's sad at this point, 2025. I mean, the fact that it is an absolute requirement, okay, that the parental alienation training and certifications before you hang up a shingle, all right,
Mhm.
that's like you said, a whole other part,
Yeah.
a podcast. But the coercive control, I got to tell you, shocked me over the last. I just couldn't believe how believable children can be. All right. We've analyzed a few cases
Mhm.
where you saw children acting in a manner that were just like you'd think if they're lying, they're like, the Hollywood Oscar winner actors.
Right.
This is,
Right.
and I've had to have like very, very seasoned investigators and ex-detectives say, Dave, no, we've seen this a lot.
Mm.
Okay. When you have a parent sitting there if you look at the science of it, okay, children, okay, need to have a bond with both parents. Why? Because for 400,000 years, if you didn't, you were dead.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So now the child now deals with one parent broken bond. So now they need to keep that other bond. If they're not going to be looking at facts and evidence at their age, they're just going to know, oh my God, if I turn my back to this parent, I'm going to
Mhm.
have two broken bonds. I'm dead. Okay.
Mhm.
If this is the Serengeti, I'm alone and I'm eaten by a lion. Okay.
Mhm.
So like, again, people just don't understand that's the dynamic in there and how much kids. I have a childhood friend who grew up with me that is part of our membership here that she feels horrible. She comes out and speaks about it that she herself was so coerced as a child, she helped commit her mother to a mental institution.
Mhm.
Okay. She got coerced into lying about her mother, and she didn't recognize it until she was older in her 30s or 40s.
Oh.
Okay. And she happened upon this information, and then boom, she got back in touch with it. And those people out there, Maryann, there are thousands and
Oh.
thousands of them. Thousands. But news is getting out. News is really, really getting out. But the thing, what you touched on before, I just want to add to is the damage to the brain of what this system does to the victims and the children. They're
Hmm.
now able to show. We're in partnership with the Amen Foundation, okay,
Hmm.
Dr. Amen, who does these spec scans, okay, very, very in-depth kind of MRI type scans that actually show in the brain the physical science, not behavioral science, the
Hmm.
physical science of showing that the actual damage to the brain from this level of abuse is identical to RAPE, okay,
Hmm.
to something on that level. That is something that people do not know. Okay. We're also just recently got connected with the START Foundation, huge, huge foundation that's all about dealing with toxic relationships. And they've got a program of basically giving people who can't afford it, okay, the therapy that they need. All right. Especially around the complex PTSD. All
Hmm.
right. Being able to recognize it, label it, okay, not choose to re-traumatize themselves. And that's what we're trying to explain to a lot of people. If you want to come in here talking about your case endlessly, take a look around, okay? That's just re-traumatizing you. You've just signed up for another 6 months of living in this. All right.
Hmm.
Because if you can heal from it, all right, but you have to take an active role and do the right things on a daily basis over like 6 months, right? To
Hmm.
get yourself away. And every time you choose to take yourself back to your case and believe, no, this time the court's got to do the right thing. You've just signed up for another 6 months, of this kind of trauma. So we're trying to come at it from all angles, but the mental health side and the training, that's paramount. I mean, that's paramount. We got a long way to go in this country and others on fixing that issue.
Right. And I've heard people say, well, the judges need more training in this alienation. And it's like, no, no, no. They've already had enough training. They know what they're doing
They
because
know
they're
exactly what they're
sociopaths,
doing.
psychopaths. They know that I've heard horror stories. I had a conversation with this poor woman. She had an accent and a speech impediment, and she was trying to talk to me, telling me what was going on, and
Right.
that they were already turning her 3-year-old against her.
Oh,
And this is a conversation that still haunts me. This is going on, what, 10 days. It like literally disturbs me
I,
hearing this. And
I,
all I can do is refer her to an ADA advocate.
right, right.
Um, I think my hippocampus in my brain is probably the size of this.
Maryann, I don't know how you have been able to hold it together and do because I've only done this for the past 7 months and I've maybe spoken about 300 people. And it is you wear everybody else's trauma. You can't hear if you have a heart, you can't hear these cases without them becoming you, at this time.
Hmm.
And what you're bringing up is 100% right. Like this is an experiment of what happens to humans if you put them in a lawless society, in
Oh.
a lawless land. And that's what we are dealing with this family court is that when you have this structure in place with no law, no repercussions,
Hmm.
and you give these people godlike powers,
Oh.
you are going to get a certain percentage of them turn into Nazis and Nazi prison guards.
Hmm.
People that are sociopathic, that get pleasure from tormenting other human beings.
Hmm.
Okay, the power. And that's who we're focusing on the wall. Okay, we don't even need to go down the list to, the ones that are in screaming sociopaths and psychopaths and horrific human beings. I mean, it's like literally we could just, cherry pick off the top because there's so many because that's why I really blame, the longer I'm in this, when I
Hmm.
first started this, I was so like most people, the center of my hate was my ex. She was the narcissist but I didn't want to hate her because that's not good for the kids.
Hmm.
Right. So then I moved to the attorney and he was very, I mean, he's one of the biggest scumbags in there. But as I'm in this longer, I'm now seeing, are they really to blame or is it really the facilitator of this, the bar association,
Hmm.
right? Who's really to blame here? And it is the end all be all, the top of the food chain of the evil is the infrastructure providers, the ones that are allowing this town without a police force, right? Are you really
Hmm.
going to blame humans for acting poorly if you put this situation in place,
Right.
right? Right? Like how many movies are out there like, oh, the Purge, okay? One day with no law, right?
Right.
I saw this
Sorry.
actually. I saw this actually on in New York City when Sandy happened, right? When we got hit with that nor'easter that knocked out all the and all the electricity in southern Manhattan. And for the first couple of days, it was kind of like Manhattan camping, and nobody was bad. But then by the fourth day, everyone lost the use of water, right? So you have no
Mhm.
toilet. Okay, thank
Oh
you.
no.
You had no toilet, no running water. So now everyone got the same idea that we had to leave at the same time. Went outside and I looked and I saw on every corner was like four families deep. And
Oh.
it's little in that just moment there, you saw humans go into survival mode. You saw it and you felt it happening, right? All of a sudden, we were reverted back to animals on the Serengeti, and it was about survival, right? And it was just that glimpse. So it really, really is. I mean, not to give any excuse to the judges and the attorneys and the real, real culprits in the system. But if you really, really think about it, the true crime is the facilitators, the ones holding themselves out as cops on the beat. These are the ones with blood on their hands. Okay.
Hmm.
I learned a statistic the other day, 8% of alienated men commit suicide,
Hmm.
fathers. I don't know why they don't have mothers. Data. I just saw it on a couple of times. 22 million people suffer in the United States from parental alienation.
Hmm.
But think of that number. Think of the next time that you're at a ball game with 30,000 people. What 8% of
Hmm.
that community is to be committing suicide, right?
You know,
You
I I think that even could be matched only because I mean
know,
I have read where this woman in California, she after they took her kids away, she just went to a bridge and jumped off into traffic. And there's also, women will, I've read up on, how women can do SUICIDE. And,
right,
overdoses don't work, people. They do not do that. But the
right,
failed, you know, attempts,
right.
these aren't documented because I've worked in an ER and women were coming in with, drug overdoses or
Right.
whatever. And it's like,
And they don't count those. They don't count those, right?
yeah,
How many other despair-based, problems, right? People got in accidents, okay, from driving a car completely, or have become alcoholics or drug addicts from the despair. They're
mm,
not counting those, and they should. If they
right.
counted all of that, right? And that's why we said this negative feedback loop is disastrous. I'm convinced,
Mm,
and people said, Dave, you got your kids back, 15 months ago well, how come, you didn't just go home, take your ball and go home?
mm,
And part of it is, wanting to do something socially responsible, but I'm not that good of a person. I'm not a saint. Okay.
mm,
It is really because I see what's happening here. And it's like, if we don't fix this, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that the laws and the rules from the criminal court are going to seep over by osmosis to the family court? Or do you think this model of it's already seeped into the conservatorships? They're outright
mm.
killing old people.
Oh
They're
yeah.
just hijacking them. They're financially raping them in their last years of life, and they're literally killing them.
Oh,
Okay,
right.
just literally killing these people, right, for their money. It's gonna seep over to other systems and other systems. If we don't do something about this, we're going to be handing an unglued society to our kids and our grandkids. So what's a parent's job? To give your kids a better world than you had, right?
Hmm.
So for 5 years, I couldn't do that, right? Now I'm back in their lives and everything. I don't live with them, okay? I see them twice, three times a week whenever I want, okay? But I really do understand this that if we do not do something about this, and I do mean we, okay? Because it's
Hmm.
not coming from some politician, it's not coming from some lawyer, okay? It is a grassroots thing that has taken hold, and we're almost there, but we got to see it through. Now we got to see it through because I mean, it's no good being the richest person in Brazil, right? When you got to
Hmm.
send your kids to school in an armored car,
Hmm.
okay, and worry about them, okay? How good is it? How great is your money going to be and your success, right? When you got to worry about, your child being kidnapped every single day of your life. And we're headed there. We're
Hmm.
absolutely headed there, okay? So anyway, I think that we are, we are definitely on our right path. We are on the right path, though.
No, yeah, I agree. Definitely, the more people that speak out, the better off we will be. When I interviewed Connie Regoli, we were talking about the orphan trains and how in New York City they had these kids just running around. They were like little, I don't know, urchins or what, street urchins. And so what they did was they took a bunch of these kids, here and there, and they put them in boxcars and sent them out to the Midwest so
Right.
farmers could pick out whoever to help with their fields, right? And
Wow.
so once people learned about this and it got to be word of mouth that this is happening to these kids, then it stopped. And
Right.
I didn't know about the orphan trains until she told me, but once it got out into the public and into the presses, they stopped this problem. And then what had happened, to go on just a little bit, but these juveniles, there was like a juvenile court back in like 1900s, we'll say, right? So this is how family court also evolved, is they were overflowed with this juvenile court system. So that's why they developed and evolved into the family court system.
Mm, right.
So,
Right. But the thing is the larger thing going on here, and what makes this different than people that come to me and say, "Oh yeah, no, 10 years my mom went through, or this person went through this horrible divorce." It was different. Okay. It's only been a relatively short period of time here where all of a sudden they finally clicked every single lawyer group. Okay. The lawyers are lawyers, the judges are lawyers, the bar association's lawyers, the Justice Department is lawyers, the regulators are lawyers, the politicians are lawyers.
mhm,
And now they have this unwritten rule they do not go against. No matter what they know about another lawyer's behavior, it's a no, it's a don't touch. Okay.
mhm,
I was telling somebody, we were like, because you were talking about, originally our plan was to take this evidence that we had to the top of the food chain. Michael Horowitz is the Inspector General of the Department of Justice. Sally Yates was on Jon Stewart's show and almost got boxed in to admit this. I thought she made a mistake by saying, when he said, whose job is it to investigate fraud and misconduct? And she said his name is Michael Horowitz, and he's the Inspector General. And our original plan was to go to him and say and shame him into doing his job.
mhm,
Okay, it's his blood on his hands at the end of the day. Now, from what I understand, he's supposed to be a pretty good guy. He was put in that position and just not given any ability to do his job,
mhm,
right? So that's how they do it, right? Even if you do have a decent person there, they just have no ability. But the level that they have gone to defraud Americans on this being a regulated industry. Calling lawyers fiduciaries is an
mhm,
abomination. Okay, I'm
mhm,
an actual fiduciary in the financial world. Okay, the way that they really adjust a fiduciary's job is you must tell the truth. You cannot have any conflicts of interest. You go through intensive audits, okay, spot audits at any time where they're looking at all your books.
mhm,
None of this stuff happens over there. Okay.
mhm,
Absolutely none of it. Um, and our original plan, okay, was to go to him and bring him to the scene of the crime, kicking and screaming and saying, "We're demanding you to do your job." There's thousands of judicial complaints that have gone uninvestigated.
mhm,
Do your job. As soon as they investigate one, it's over. But I try to give people little insights on how they do this little scam, okay? Because even though Sally Yates is saying on national television, it's his job, the buck stops with him, okay, for fraud, to investigate fraud and misconduct in the justice system as a whole. I
Mm.
immediately went to their website. On the very first page, it says on the bottom, we do not investigate local, municipal, and federal judges. For that,
Oh.
you have to go to the Judicial Misconduct Board. Well, in my piece, I said, I did that. And I
Mhm.
submitted it there. And the letter I got back from the Maryann said it all. Said, okay, well, we understand what you're going through, but you have to understand we're not a court of law and we have no authority to investigate the merits of any complaint. If you've got no ability to investigate, you're not a regulator. So
Ah.
that's two avenues that purport themselves as ultimate regulators of the most important, the people that we put the most important power, the power to control people's lives, who goes to jail, what kids are going to destroy,
Mhm.
and zero regulation. I can't even call it the Wild West. The Wild
Yeah.
West had more rules, okay, and laws than what is operating here. So you talk about who's got the most blood on their hands in this
Mhm.
thing. All right.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I still think it's like, what do you think was going to happen from setting this up? Okay.
Mhm.
You put humans in this ability, you give them godlike powers, right? With absolutely no repercussions, no matter what they do. What do you think is going to happen?
Right.
What do you think is going to happen? So, I don't know what it's going to take, but hopefully our wall of shame is going to migrate up to every single member of the Bar Association,
Mhm.
because whether they're patsies, and I believe that they are, okay, they choose the weakest individuals to be in these roles that they can control and stuff like that. But still, we have not, I don't have vengeance. I don't hate these people. We have no choice.
Right.
Okay. The only avenue is to expose and rely on public shaming. Okay.
Mhm.
Because it works. Because
Right.
it does work. It does work.
Right. Like I had interviewed Natalia Dalton in Virginia, and her judge was Lisa Kemmler, the one that got early retirement, right? And
Yeah.
she allowed the ex to run the courtroom like a three-ring circus, like my judge did.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so these judges are identifying with these sociopath personality disorders, and they're just sitting back and just letting them run the courtroom because what, the judge is too tired to? Put them in their place, have them sit down.
Yeah.
And in meantime, now this poor woman, she doesn't even know where her son is. Yet they want her to pay child support. So
Right.
this whole thing is where the greed and all the problem is Title IV, B, D, and E.
Yeah.
And you know all about that. And
Oof.
this is where the root, I think, of the problem is, correct me if I'm wrong, you're allowed to.
No, you are 100% right.
Yeah, I'm like, it's the greed for the money. In fact, I know a woman who's paying a hefty amount of child support, but it's going to the guys to the step monster so she can support her kids.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, people, you know,
And that's done. They use absurdity as a weapon, right?
mhm.
Because when you have that level, I don't work. My ex makes $500,000 a year. Okay. I watched a movie the other day where a guy was talking about he got a check from his job for 1 cent because of all the money that had to be taken out by California state and everything. His weekly or whatever paycheck came in at 1 cent.
Oh,
They do that to drive you insane.
right.
They do it on purpose to drive you insane. The more they can get you to either look insane by doing nothing more than explaining the reality of you're going through, right?
Hmm.
Because just that alone, all right, the more unbelievable the story, guess what? The more unbelievable the story when you're telling it. But when they go to this extra level that is so unnecessary, you could sit there and say, why was that necessary? They already won. Okay. It reminded me of, there's this case that Frank Parlato reported on in Connecticut, where it was the mother who had two minor children, who was a Harvard lawyer, and the judge ordered her. They used to hide it and call it child support, pay it to the mother, and then the attorney had to get the legal fees. Now they don't even care; they just award it directly. Literally, the judge awarded directly. She had to pay $33,000 directly to her ex attorney. Okay. And she couldn't do it. It was tied up or something like this. And the judge said, for the sanctity of the court, I have to throw you in jail. The husband is on record begging the judge not to do it, saying, Judge, who's going to watch my children? She's the primary. No, 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 no. For the sanctity of the court, we
Whoa.
have to throw you in jail for the sanctity of the court. And literally, from Frank Parlato's article was just reading the actual transcript. This is the most chilling article I've ever read, most chilling. The judge is sitting there saying, well, you don't have the money. How come you didn't borrow it? Okay, you don't have nobody to borrow it from? Like, and it's like, and just the fact that a money judgment you can go to jail for. We outlawed that 200 years ago. That's the definition of a banana republic.
Mm.
Okay, you could go to criminal jail for a financial judgment thing. And but no, no, okay. In this wild world of family court, you're in violation of a court order and failing to pay child support. Okay. And then they could deem anything in the nature of child support. So, yes, paying your attackers fees, outrageous, fraudulent, okay, billing fraud fees is in the nature of child support. But what do they wind up doing with all this absurdity? They get people like us feeling so traumatized, having to tell these stories all the time. And then what are we doing? We're just traumatizing ourselves. You're just telling this story over and over and over. And this is what we're trying to do, is say, guys, let's get beyond this now. Let's know that that is their game plan. Okay.
Hmm.
Let's not let that work. Let's expect it. Okay. Be like, let's say, oh, that's your game plan, huh? Okay. So, yeah, that makes sense. You're trying to get me to rage bait me, and I'm not going to fall for it. Okay. And
Mm.
we try to tell our members, if you've got to go into court, yeah, we understand that only a sociopath can sit there watching your child being abused and not be angry. But if you can go into the court with the right mind frame, right, knowing that it's theater, knowing that they're going to do it ahead of time, now you're a smarter warrior. Okay.
Hmm.
This is a war of the mind and thinking. So if they can act, you can act. Okay. Go in there. Okay. Laugh in their face. Throw them, throw something at them from completely left field. All right. It can't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. It can't hurt because you doing everything according to what they ask for, and do everything right. That, like you said, okay, never works. Bullies don't respond to kindness.
Right.
Kindness is weakness. There's only one thing that tyrants respond to, and is strength.
Hmm.
Okay, is strength. And that's why we got warrior as the name on the door. All right.
Hmm.
It's not, there for no reason. It is the mindset that, we understand needs to happen here. So, hopefully we're very, very close with wonderful people like you, Maryann, on the beat.
Well,
Okay.
thank
I
you.
wish you, I don't know how you did 700 of these things and
I
still
don't
maintain
know.
your sanity. I don't
I
know how. I honestly, that's beyond my recognition of what I can understand.
I don't know if I just did it out of stress, something to do to keep my mind off of the
Your
child
own case.
psychological abuse. Yeah. You know, yeah, you have to take this and turn it into something positive that will help other people.
Take your pain and turn it into purpose. And that's what you
Right.
did. And that's what's wonderful. And on behalf of the entire community, I talk to enough people in this community that love you, okay, speak
Mm.
so highly of you. And I know I can speak for all of them in saying thank you, okay?
Well,
Thank you
thank you
for being
too.
a real, real, real beacon of hope and support, for people. And my God, if we could just carbon copy you, just make like
I know.
10. make like 10 more of you, and
I don't think my ex would like that or the step monster, but I'm all
well,
for it.
when we win this, okay, we're gonna make him live with 10 of you.
Ah!
We're gonna clone you. We're gonna get you. Elon Musk is gonna clone you, and we're gonna sentence him to a small jail cell with 10 Maryanns.
Yeah, that's right, right. Well, I had a mom call me yesterday and she said, people are, thank God, learning from these interviews, like even with you. But she said, you interviewed Mark Fishman. And I said, yeah. She said, if I didn't know any of these ADA rights, I didn't know I had these ADA rights. And
Yeah,
this has saved me. If it wasn't for that interview, I wouldn't, I'd be up the creek. So I'm
yeah,
glad I can help because I can't be a nurse anymore. So I have to do something to
yeah.
help. It's
And
just,
that's a great point. The ADA stuff again. As far as defending you, okay,
mm,
that they should have a heck of a lot more respect for the ADA. We've seen them violate those too
mhm,
at will, because if the source of the problem is there's no regulation or them stopping them do anything, but the ADA is a separate animal there and provides an extra layer of real support that it at least can thwart them off an aggressive path against you in a way and you're right, yeah, like if we can all just learn from each other about what's worked where, okay,
mhm,
it's just if you got a success story out there, get it out, okay.
mhm.
There's not enough success stories, all right, of what's working. So if something is working out there, okay, get it out and know. But equally, we're asking people also have an open mind. If you've been following 10 years of things that have not worked, maybe get to the point of understanding. Maybe this is something you should stop doing. Maybe, success is
Yeah,
about understanding what you should be doing and understand what you should be stop doing, not doing with your time and your days. You know what I mean?
exactly.
So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, dear, because again, everybody is, picking up one or two things. If they're able to pick up one or two things that can then help them and keep them from, you know, okay, the worst of all outcomes, which we were talking about before, right? I mean, that's, I think, the ultimate thing. If we could possibly just give people enough hope so that that ultimate outcome is avoided. All
Oh,
right.
yes. I
Um,
encourage everyone to stay alive and breathe to irritate these players.
Yeah, yeah, and we do now have a system here where it's not just this hopeless, okay, nothing but failure at every turn, okay. Yes, maybe we've seen that legally, okay, in the 20,000 legal process we've seen fail. But the thing is, I could see a lot of these things start to work now because in combination of what we're doing, right? So in the past,
Awesome.
maybe it hasn't worked, right? But now if they know, uh-oh, if I don't, okay, respect this ADA law of what's going on here, Maryann Petri is going to be highlighting me. Dave Weigel is going to have me on a wall of shame. Richard Luthman is going to have a published article that's going to be Google searchable for my grandkids to have
Yeah.
to see. Now, people are they're doing risk versus return assessments. Okay.
Mhm,
In the current situation, it's all return, all money. There's no risk, right?
mhm.
All of us coming together and doing our part here is providing that risk that needs to be there. That pain system that needs to be there. So I can't. I thank you so much for
Oh, I thank
the
you.
opportunity to
Uh,
do the spiel.
well, how can people reach you? Do you want them to reach you at Family Court Fraud Warrior Project on Facebook
Yes,
and
yes,
Dave
yes, indeed.
Weigel on Facebook?
hmm I
Okay.
do want to say a lot of people, we're at a point here right now. Everybody wants to IM me. Unfortunately, the Facebook system does not allow for me to have an administrator to be able to deal with that. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's a security violation. Don't friend me personally. I'm separating my personal life and my personal family and friends from my advocacy work. Please come to the Family Court Fraud Warrior Project. Okay, that's what's been set up there.
Okay.
We have 15 monitors and volunteers that are there to help and specialize in all these other areas. Now our videos are going to be broadcast out going forward onto TikTok and Instagram and all these other things. So we're
Good.
getting people coming into different places. But the Facebook public ledger is the necessary centerpiece of making this work. It's got to be this public, okay, fact gathering mission that we've already started here. So and also we are starting a new campaign where we're using Telegram. Okay,
Mm,
because instant messenger is so poor, it's so full of spam. Okay, that we are going to be constantly announcing, please sign up for, Telegram. Okay, get in touch with us that way. We're going to have specific, an announcement group, okay, a verified victims group, a new members group. We're going to be able to cultivate our messages a lot more efficiently than just having to go to the news feed to get the latest. And it's very hard to make one message fit 3,000 people. Okay.
mhm, mhm.
So we are really trying to up our game on the communication side. So two things, please come to Family Court Fraud Warrior Project on Facebook. You might need to type the whole thing out because the algorithm, they don't like these groups that are fighting against family court. They're not supportive of us. You're not, it's, spell every word correctly. Family Court Fraud Warrior Project. Okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a little difficult to find us. Become a member. All right. We do encourage everybody to sign up with their own personal name. But if you can't for some reason right now, there is a workaround. You could sign up with a fake name, do the questions, do the video. We'll move you over to the verified victims of the private group. You could be yourself there. But again, data needs to be data because it's true. So that's where you're going to grab us and be part of the movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, don't jump off. Salam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Google, and a lot of other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this going. Thank you so much, Dave Weigel, for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne.